everybody for coming to our chat with Richard Johnson. Really appreciate everyone coming. Thank you for joining us. Good to see everyone. Thank you, Marcella and Kate and Cynthia and Marina. Hi, Oliver. Hi, Pat. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much. For those of you who don't know Richard Johnson, I'm going to just read a little bio about Richard. Richard is a renowned news illustrator who has worked with the National Post and the Washington Post and the Globe and Mail. Since 2003, he was embedded in the United States Marine Corps during the invasion in the early months of the Iraq War. In 2007, he was embedded with the Canadian International Security Assistance Force in Kandahar and returned a couple of times. He traveled as a photographer and a videographer to Zimbabwe while working with the United Nations. He is also an urban sketcher, and he teaches life drawing at the Frederick Art School. So, welcome, Richard.
Thanks for having me. Good to be here.
So, we're going to talk today about your field work, and you've had many years of experience working in the field with these newspapers, different newspapers, and recording what you see in these war zones. And I mean, I really feel that that's very important work because people need to know and understand, you know, from a non-military perspective, what's going on, and just showing, rather than always reading about what's going on, you're showing a poignancy that that wouldn't otherwise be there if they just snapped some pictures. So I've been following you for years since your work with the National Post, and I think that you're an amazing artist. Just really do some wonderful work. And we're going to show people your work today. So should we go straight into that?
Yes, absolutely. Feel free. The less of me talking, the more of looking at stuff, the better, I think.
So Richard, let's start off. What are we looking at in this image here?
First off, I'd like to, I feel like I should apologize right up front. I've made this extremely difficult on poor Brenda. She asked me for 20 images to draw attention to my work, and instead I gave her 220 images, which we have not managed to vet down at all, and we have only the most rudimentary of plans as to how we're going to get through all this material, or if even half of it's necessary. So sorry, Brenda.
It's okay. We won't dwell on every image. We'll look at a few and then skip a few. So that's okay.
So I wanted to start out with this one. In all of your histories, I know there's some reason why you started drawing. For me, I went through most of my life not doing very much drawing at all. And then for any of you who know my work, you probably don't know this little bit of a backstory, which is when my first son was born back in the 90s. He was born with transposed major arteries, and so he had open heart surgery when he was very small. And because I was still working a day job, I used to go in and spend the evenings with him. And after spending a couple of evenings just listening to all the machinery keeping him alive while he was unconscious, I realized I couldn't just sit there and listen to the machinery. So I picked up a pencil for the first time in years and started to sketch what I saw. And those have now become memories for me, and those pieces of art will eventually go on to him. But the first thing I realized is that I have a drawing style that is best described as anal for details. I don't like leaving any line undrawn. I like to follow every piece of machinery where it goes, but I do like to really capture every part of something. I think that this actually works detrimentally to me most of the time. I often think that I don't get a lot of art in my drawings. I get much more technical proficiency rather than art, but I don't seem to be able to overcome it. I draw what I see slavishly, but also as quickly as possible. So these drawings are important because some 10 years after these drawings were done, just around the time of the invasion, before the invasion of Iraq, the newspaper I worked for at the time was Detroit Free Press. And through a peculiar kind of confluence of events, one of which was me not getting on with my boss and wanting to get out of the office. And the newspaper, along with every other newspaper in the world, trying to figure out how they were going to cover this incredibly poorly advertised secret invasion. They put out an email which said, does anyone in the entire newsroom have any ideas how we can cover this differently? And so one of those emails that you sometimes write but don't send because you think better of it afterwards. This was one of those emails where I wrote it and sent it, and it arrived on someone's desk, another backstory in there, who shouldn't have been there, another accidental confluence of events that put him in that place, so that he knew about combat art from his history, and he saw these drawings, and it was, I think, the new news editor's first week on the job, and he greenlit sending me to Iraq based on these drawings, which is why I thought it was important to show them.
Yeah, yeah.
That's succinct enough? Probably not.
No,
I'll try and keep it more brief. But
no,
anyway, I thought that was important to put in, just because this is kind of even though I had this realization and loved these drawings at the time with my son, I then went through a decade where I didn't pick up a pencil again, hardly. So it was only, when I really didn't like my boss that I thought, well, how am I going to show that I can draw and get out of here? So I leaned backwards on these.
Is this also your son?
Yeah, this is him. These are different evenings. I would go in the evenings. I think there were 9 or 10 until he became conscious again. They kept him unconscious through much of his recovery. And then after 9 or 10 nights, he was awake again. And at that point, there was no opportunity to, he was too busy being a kid again at that point. So
yeah, wow. That's, a very fascinating story. This is you at the beginning, in the early stages?
This is in Kuwait. One of the things that they believed was going to happen at the time was that Saddam had chemical weapons, so we had to be able to gas up, put all of our gas gear on very quickly. I like this because it's one of those delightfully incongruous drawings. There's me busy sketching something inside a tent in Kuwait in full gas gear, and I didn't just don it for the photograph. There literally was a faux gas attack. I think there are gas gauges around the base, and every time a camel passes wind, the gas gauges would alert, and the whole place would go on lockdown, and everybody would put all their gas gear on again. And I had a deadline for stories, so I wasn't going to let a full gas attack get in the way of me finishing what I was doing.
I think you are truly an amazing person. So MK wants to know, MK Duke, who's a lovely person, and wants to know, how did you keep your skills if you didn't draw for 10 years at a time?
Yeah, that's a good question. I do seem to be able to, one of the things I recommend to everyone is that they draw all the time. But I'm also quite busy, so it's sometimes it's hard to squeeze in and keep that sketch level up. I will say that over the last 15 to 20 years, I have accelerated the amount of drawing I've done, considerably. And I'm not sure I could go. I think that when I look back at this stuff, when I hadn't drawn for 10 years, I'm only showing you the things I like. I'm not showing you, there are things I drew where I really can tell that I didn't have the skill for what I was attempting. Whereas now I think I can actually, I've drawn so much, I can actually lean back from it a little, and I don't have that need to keep up the proficiency. But for anyone who wants to become proficient, he said, kind of contradicting himself, the thing is, you've got to draw all the time. You just got to force yourself to pick up the pencil and draw something 2-3 times a day if you can.
Yeah.
And especially take on the things that you fail on.
Yes.
And spend more time trying to understand them.
Yeah. Quick, no story, but just a quick subtitle. What is this that we're looking at?
So one of the things I realized, I spent, I think, 4 weeks inside Iraq after the invasion up until the fall of Baghdad. And during that period, it was really, it was a different time in communication. I was sending stuff back via a little sat phone I had, but I was only allowed to use it for, I think, less than a half an hour a day because it cost so much to send things. So I had there was no internet connectivity. None of the Marines we were with during the invasion had any type of connectivity at all. So I was acting as their news source, and each evening I would send material out, and then the office would send me like a burst transmission, a single email with some news, and I would share that news with them. So I went, anyway, that's kind of an aside, but I went through most of the conflict with very little idea what was going on in the larger conflict. And that meant I went through most of the conflict with no idea what the public response was to this material.
Okay.
What happened was, when I eventually returned, I got back to my desk in Detroit some couple of months later, there was a stack of physical mail on my desk. And the only time you receive physical mail as a journalist is when you've screwed up, right? If people are ticked off enough to actually write to you, then you know you've done something really wrong.
Yeah.
I think, so I opened all that mail and it all turned out to be positive. Everybody responded to the intimacy of the first person drawings of Marines, especially because, you know, some of them are, you know, I think I was 34 at the time. Most of these kids were 18, 19, 20, none of them older than 24. And I think that's when I realized how much I enjoyed portraying them and putting faces on these kids that we send to war zones. But I also realized that the intimacy of the art, the first person drawing, the getting to know a person well enough where they'll just ignore you and allow you to draw them, really made a bridge, I think, and help people feel for the soldiers themselves and have more of a connection with the stories I was telling.
I think that's really true.
Another incredibly long answer, but this is, you know, I get to the point where the guys are just bunked down, and I think as urban sketchers, we all know that if you go out in a group of urban sketchers, you'll often be astonished by the things that attract other people's eye that don't attract your eye. And there are just certain people are attracted to different complex things, or some building that you'd never thought to draw. And afterwards, you're always a bit amazed that, you know, it didn't occur to you to tackle it as a subject. Yeah. So I think for me in this situation, it's all interesting to me. It all catches my eye. And having gained trust, the possibilities are endless of telling stories of these men and women.
Yeah. Pat is asking, how much and what kind of things did you draw before your 10-year hiatus? I think they're trying to get an idea of, you know, how good you were before.
So I've been a newspaper illustrator for a long time. So sports cartoons, those kind of things. I was hired on my kind of ability to do little scratchboard illustrations for editorials, those kind of things. So newspapers use them for op-eds, business illustrations when they can't afford the time to send out a cameraman to have some photographs taken of someone. They'll use an in-house illustrator. So at that time, I was doing illustration, but no live drawing. I was drawing from memory, or drawing from an idea. So that's the kind of thing I was drawing. Cool.
Okay, so we're going to have to skip through a few. Not that I don't want to see them, and I don't think they're amazing. I do, but
choose the ones that catch your eye, and I'll happily provide any backstory you can.
So this is a fellow listening to the BBC.
Right. So again, they had no connectivity, but he'd borrowed the tiny little FM radio I had, so he could listen into the BBC each evening, find out what was going on. This is a 19-year-old woman sitting on a grenade launcher. She was one of 2 female Marines with the group that I was with. And this is 20 years ago. So
yeah, and this is you on the right.
Yeah.
Wow. That's her. That's the sketch.
That's her. Yeah. She had to put her helmet on for the sketch.
Yeah. So tell me about the materials that you use when you're in the field like this in a war zone. I'm looking at a blue color.
So these are prison. I've since given up on the spiral bound sketch pads because that turned out to be a ridiculous idea. Spiral bound will just smudge the hell out of your drawing if you're carrying it around, and it gets in the way of almost everything if you want to make them landscape. So I no longer do that. But these are all Prismacolor pencils. The backstory on Prismacolor pencils is, before I went to Iraq, I was fortunate enough to go and visit with a combat artist whose name is Howard Brody. Howard's since passed about 5 or 6 years ago, but he was a combat artist in World War II. He landed at Guadalcanal. He was there during the Battle of the Bulge. He was a phenomenal freehand flowing illustrator in the field, an incredibly brave man. And when he landed at Guadalcanal, he lost all of his material over the side of the landing craft. And he then, over the few days afterwards, he went to a CP and pilfered these pencils which they use to draw on maps. So they're sort of a waxy pencil that's made by Prismacolor. And so he had then used these to draw with throughout his entire career after that point. And so these pencils that he pilfered were these Prismacolor pencils. And so he recommended them because they don't smudge. You also can't erase, which is good because it forces you to be very brave. You can't fiddle around trying to decide which line you want. You just put a line down and that's the line you're going to go with. So it makes you nice and decisive as an artist. But he's an incredible talent. If you want to look up Brody, you'll see stuff of his courtroom drawings, his stuff from World War II. It makes what I do look, a little like I'm pretending to be something I'm not. His skills are quite visiting him, spending a couple of days with him. I drew him, and it's a terrible drawing, but I was utterly terrified when it was like visiting God.
And is his sketch of him in this group of photos that you sent me?
Oh no, I don't think it is. I didn't think we were going to go in this direction, so I didn't think to put it in. But I can dig it out.
It's okay, no problem. And so I suppose there is a long line, a history of combat artists, but yeah, are you? Can you tell me a little bit about that?
So one of the key things I think that for me makes it important in a day when we can take a video and send a video basically within the same minutes and share it with hundreds of people, or draw something and share it within seconds of one another. If not live now, you can share it live as it's happening. I think that the difference for these things, and I only know because of how, when I see a drawing that's really well rendered, so with the same kind of slavish attempt at accuracy as I have, I've been fortunate enough to see some of the drawings they have from World War I in the Smithsonian, and there are some coloured pencil drawings there. I can't remember the name of the artist, but I will find it out for you if anybody's interested. That a French artist did of tanks lined up to join the battle back in 1918, and the drawings there are, when you look at them, when I was in the museum, they allowed us to take them out and lay them out, and the drawings look like they're drawn yesterday. Unlike if I was looking at sepia tone photographs from World War I,
right?
You can time travel with these drawings.
Wow.
You instantly, because this drawing was drawn 20 years ago now, and yet you're instantly right there sitting in the MASH unit with me as I'm drawing it, right? It's timeless. You can't tell from anything that's going on exactly when it is. So it's that ability to time travel and to document, accurately, that I think makes this an incredibly important, almost a non-artistic. I mean, it's important artistically because I think it can capture emotional subjects very well. But
absolutely.
It's also just an incredible, when you filter stuff through a human being, I think you get more of a real documentary copy of the moment than you do with a camera at times.
Because I think that's really true.
This was drawn through a period of probably 45 minutes beside Samia while she was in recovery in this MASH unit in a small town in south of Baghdad. Now, Sami and Nakul, I don't know how old our group is, but if you remember at the beginning of the invasion, a few days into the invasion, when the army started to move into the outskirts of Baghdad, there was I think an army tank shell struck a big hotel, and it was filled with journalists.
Yes.
Samia,
yes.
Yeah, so Samia was one of the journalists in that hotel. Her and her cameraman, an Australian, were in this MASH unit.
Yeah.
And she was on the 8th floor, and someone in the tank thought he saw someone with a rocket launcher, and it turned out to be a guy with a camera, and he blew the entire floor out of the Palestine hotel.
I remember that.
She had had brain surgery in an Iraqi hospital before that Iraqi hospital was eventually overrun, and at that point she was in this MASH unit. She's an amazing journalist too.
Did she survive?
Yes. Yep.
Oh, wow.
She's still big time.
Wow, that's amazing.
This is one I think is probably worth talking because of how it takes time to get to know people.
Yeah.
But once you've overcome that, once these guys trust you, you can get that kind of intimacy. So we had lost two men the day before, and we had lost them while trying to secure the other side of a canal. So both bodies were missing in the river, and this was a sergeant waiting while some Navy divers were searching the river. And
it looks like he's praying.
Yes. It was just, he had nothing to do but sit and wait for them to find the bodies. There was not going to be any good news.
No.
But having that ability to get to know people where they trust you to this point is the key of embedding properly.
Yeah. And, Richard, do you feel that your work as a news illustrator embedded in these war zones has impacted your own personality? And it's like, how has it changed you?
My own politics, I'm about as left-wing a person as you can imagine. I'm like way over there on the left, which makes me thoroughly out of place in most military scenarios. But I'm also, you can't help but be a realist as to how hard the world is for many, many people. And a lot of people think they know how lucky they are. Yeah. I think. And I think that most of us have no idea how lucky we are. I think that's probably one realization from being involved in the military to the situations they find themselves in, to the people that find themselves being handled by, you in so many scenarios that don't go as planned. When you look back at, you had very, very young people doing the best they possibly could.
Yes.
Some people who've never left their home state before, trying to handle incredibly complex situations. There's so many opportunities for things to go wrong. Yeah. And they often do. But it's not because they're not, in almost every situation, I'm impressed by how mature very young people can be when given incredibly difficult tasks. I didn't answer you. I don't think I answered your question at all there.
No. Well, you sort of.
Did I wander off? Sorry.
No, well, I was thinking as I got to chat with you before this call and get to know you a little bit, that you would probably be very good at your job and at being embedded, because I think that the guys could easily relate to you and accept you, even though you're obviously a lot older than they are, but even still, like you, I think that they could really feel, you could quickly build a rapport with them.
It's Groundhog Day every single time. Yeah. They don't build a rapport with you until they're ready to. Yeah. Pretty much their instant appreciation of you is that you're an idiot, that you shouldn't be there, that you have no possible useful qualities, that you are baggage, that you're probably going to get one of them killed, and
Yeah.
really they just wish you would go away and be someone else's responsibility. And it takes, yeah, I mean, you're their worst nightmare, because they've all trained together, they all know one another intimately, and suddenly they have this random, you know, geezer in their midst who's got a little sketch pad and is following them around, speaks in a weird accent. They really don't know what to make of it. And then, you know, you draw something, and you know, they're intrigued by the drawing. Sure, you know, great. It's like Carnival Barker, right? The guy who draws the headshots at the carnival. But then you publish something, and when they get wind of something being published, and they see the responses to it online, and they can begin to funnel, they begin to see themselves in a different light, I think, through what you've pubbed. And they just, it's like every time it's like night and day. And in every situation, there are people who have been downright obstructive in the initial levels of every embed. And by the end of it, we're pen pals, we're still in touch. They're being incredibly helpful. People react to the art in a way that changes their personality and changes their mindsets. And that's just the people I'm drawing. I'm not talking about, you know, there's certainly a huge effect on the people who view the things themselves.
Yeah. Well, as I said, I can see that you would be, in spite of all those obstacles, you have the personality to be very successful at that, and you are, and I'm not surprised. It's amazing. Very interesting. We're not going to have time for everything, so I'm just going to go through. I think that somebody mentioned, Pat said that your pencil drawings have a great feeling of immediacy and intimacy that photos can't capture. And I think that that's really true. You can really see that.
So I've filled this. This is all urban sketching. It's just, you know, a different environment. I tend to seek out opportunities. This is the same guard tower I visited 4 years apart in Afghanistan. Those last two, different, you know, Afghan guy in the tower. You know, it's all so interesting that my problem is that it gets dark and I have to stop when it gets dark. You know, I just want going all the time.
Did you ever? Go ahead.
If we stop on something, I'll have a story about it. So you should just.
Okay. Did you ever feel that you were yourself in danger when you were? I guess that's a dumb question. Probably the question is your level of danger.
So I get this question quite often, and I recently kind of rethought my answer to it, because the truth is they do not, the last thing they want is for anything to happen to a journalist who's with them on their watch. That's their worst nightmare. The press from that is very negative.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they want you to experience, you know, everything that they're going through. But they look, you know, they look after you in the same way that they look after themselves. Everything's a calculated risk. Everything is all about communication and knowing where everyone is. But at the same time, you know, I've been incredibly fortunate. Have I also been stuck in a minefield? Yes. Have I had the vehicle in front of me blow up on an IED? Yes. Have I been shot at? Yes. But when I look back on it, most of those things, I still don't feel like I was ever in any real danger. And I know that sounds counterintuitive, like a lot of what I'm saying, I'm sure, but I just, they appreciate the hell out of you once they get you, and work very hard to make sure you're, you know, not going to do anything stupid. And you add into that, as you gain experience, not, you know, taking risks yourself. So if there's a road convoy and it's going somewhere important, I'll go on it because that's a great story to tell of that road convoy for the day. But if they go on the same road convoy again the next day, do I really want to go on another road convoy?
Right. So
unlike them, I have the ability to choose my risk a little bit more. For these guys, they got to hit that road every single day, knowing that someone's planted, in all likelihood, has planted IEDs on it since they went down it yesterday. And their orders are, you're going to patrol this road regardless. So I don't face anything like the hardships that soldiers in the field face.
Mm-hmm.
This is
Wow.
one. These are my boots in this one. So
Yeah, that's very Paul Hastonish.
yeah, it
Who
totally is. I wish I could be Paul Heaston.
Paul Hastон is a big fan of yours. Yes, have talked with him about you, and he thinks that your art is really amazing.
He's a machine. He's unbelievable. Quite fantastic. I look at his stuff and try and climb inside his head and try and figure out how he did some of these things. And I literally, even when I can watch him doing it, I still can't figure out how he's doing it.
Yeah. Wow.
This one was bouncy one. You can tell I could not hold the pencil here. So these are all relatively old stuff. You know, this is the reporters I do. This is, for a while I was drawing in ballpoint. I went to ballpoint because I was writing a blog I mentioned to you for the Washington Post, and I was really enthusiastic about that anyone can draw badly or well, but anyone can draw and capture what it is they're drawing. And so I was trying to say, you know, everybody's got a ballpoint within reach, and everybody's got a piece of scrap paper. So just pick up the ballpoint and draw what you see around you.
Right.
That was my spiel for a while. But then I since realized a lot of my drawings have now started to fade, so I should have been more careful with what I told people to do. So
Sorry about that.
that's all right.
Well, let's just turn that down. Okay. Yeah, so this is the indigo blue pencil from Prismacolor. Is it like what is that, like a pencil crayon or?
Yeah, it's a colored pencil. It doesn't smudge when you rub over it too badly. But like I said, once the line's down, it's pretty much down.
Wow, okay, cool. Is this the same pencil?
Yep, yeah, it's all the same.
It's amazing. It looks a lot darker, almost up in the top area, like it's almost like a pen.
Lean pretty hard.
Yeah. Wow.
So much of Afghanistan is so sculptural. So if you enjoy those kind of nature landscapes, or you're a Lord of the Rings fan, it's very like Mordor. And I've always had a love of the technology as well, and as the machinery has shifted over time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm not sure describing a place as like Mordor is going to work well on a travel brochure.
No, well, maybe. There's a lot of Lord of the Rings fans out there.
Yeah. So, Richard, why don't you tell us a bit about the combat art program?
So, anyone in particular, or the Marine Corps?
Yeah, just so I know you said there's more than one program, so maybe tell us about one and then tell us a bit about the other.
All right. So
I know that there's Canadians and Americans on this call, and maybe people from other countries too. I'm not sure.
Yeah. So most of the armed forces in most countries have some kind of a combat art program. I'm involved with a few, or have been involved with a few over the years. So the one I'm involved most directly with at the moment, and probably might be of interest to anyone who feels they'd like to try their hand at this, is the US Marine Corps Combat Art Program, which has its own webpage, and it's run by the National Museum of the Marine Corps in Virginia. And they have a twofold mandate, which is to make art of Marines anywhere in the world, and also to train active duty Marines in how to draw. So they will find active duty Marines who have a modicum of talent, and they hire civilians to help them in the field to develop that talent. And the civilians also create art while they're in the field. So I've been operating as a volunteer with them for the last I've never really left the Corps. I've always been involved with them. But this is an active program that has been the last 3 or 4 years. And they'll send artists. I think we have 5 or 6 civilian artists who go out with, I think so far, 3 or 4 different active duty Marines to various points around the world and help them develop their skills. So that's one aspect, but there are other programs out there. If you're in the US, I know the Coast Guard has a great art program. None of these programs have any money. Some of them have no money even for travel, so you'll be paying for your own travel. The Marine Corps program has money for travel and life insurance and those kind of things to get in country, and then once you're in country, you'll be traveling with the Marines anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And then in Canada, the Canadian Forces Art Program is an excellent program. Again, not a lot of budget, but they take, I think, between 8 and 10 artists every 2 years and deploy them wherever the Canadian military is. And I can send you details on all of those programs. And if you're interested in joining the Marine Corps program, which I think is really excellent, then I can send you details for that too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think if somebody is interested in this kind of work, then that's an excellent way to get started anyway, to get some experience, especially, a young grad from art school who's interested in this kind of work.
So this is Taliban suspect. It wasn't entirely clear he was Taliban, but they brought him in after he'd been shot in some kind of a firefight. And so I had the opportunity came up when I was in Bagram in Afghanistan through a public affairs officer one of those I'd convinced how useful I could be, and he put together this opportunity in the hospital.
Did this image appear in the National Post?
This would have been in the Washington Post, yeah.
Washington Post, okay.
Yeah, but he you have to ask everyone if it's okay that you capture their image. So
yeah,
the doctors were so excited about me being there that they managed to get him to sign a waiver. How conscious he was when he signed the waiver, I'm always a bit dubious about. But
I seem to recall seeing this image at the time and thinking, "Wow, it's incredible."
This is
oh, sorry.
Right. So this is a good one. So that was the when I said a vehicle ahead of me blew up, that was the vehicle ahead of me. But this is right after that vehicle had blown up. This is an Afghan interpreter who has, I think, just a few days left on his tour before he goes home. And so after the vehicle ahead of me had blown up and the security went out, I did not take the opportunity to get out and go. I didn't take the opportunity to get out of the vehicle at this point.
No.
Because there's just so far I'm willing to go. But this fellow was he immediately sat on his helmet over his manhood, and so he was a great sketch as I was sitting there scared out of my wits.
Wow, that's crazy. Wow. So this is after it was blown up.
Yeah, this was after it. They towed it to base, and everyone was fine. All 5 of the soldiers on board survived. All 5 of them went on to receive medals of valor afterwards.
This is so incredible, Richard. Really.
I think like I said, there's a level of trust that I gain because of the intimacy that perhaps other mediums don't gain in the same way.
I think Richard, that you are a movie waiting to happen.
Yeah, only if we can have Jean-Claude Van Damme play me, that would be
great.
Okay,
well, we'll see what we can do.
But just that previous sketch there, had I been a photographer, they would not have allowed me to publish this. This would give far too much information to the enemy in their mind. But because it's a sketch, I get, there's an opportunity to show the drama and the horror and the damage that can be done to a vehicle by an enemy.
Yes, and this is a vehicle that's meant to withstand attack.
Yes, it's supposed to come apart like that, so the blast is deflected. So
crazy.
This is a young man who I actually just sent this sketch to his sister. He died in 2018, and I sketched him. We were in I can't remember the name of the base. A FOB. It's, I think, in Kalat province in Afghanistan. It was called Rocket City, and I can't remember the name of the FOB. But they used to get rockets every single night. So the next day, whichever direction the rockets had come from, they would send a patrol out. And so this was his second patrol. He basically just come back off one patrol overnight and gone right out on another. And I embedded with them when they went out looking for these people who were firing rockets into the base.
Yeah.
And they were, as soon as the thing started moving, they were both, the other guys in the MRAP were fast asleep, so I drew him. But he died in 2018. And so his sister wrote to me and asked if I had anything. So I actually just mailed this sketch to his sister about a week ago.
Well, did he die in combat or?
No, I think,
Okay.
I don't know for sure.
Okay. Well, so I think 36 hours on duty,
Yeah.
I think you'd get a little bit loopy.
Yep.
My gosh. Okay, this is a video of you, fast forwarded, doing a sketch of some kind of jet, and that's your apprentice you mentioned.
Right, yeah, so this is one of me in my teaching role. This is in Foreground. That is a warthog. And I'd done a horrible decision as to where I was going to sit, which was looking directly into the sun as it went down. So I was frantically trying to draw as the sun was curving towards me. I don't know if it's going to go to the next
That's
stage.
crazy. And this is with that.
I misjudged the paper as well and had to extend it.
And this is with your blue pencil.
Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible. That's the final drawing. Huh. Really amazing. So I'm going to skip through because we are getting low on time.
Whatever you need to do.
Yeah. Well, I want to go ahead to some of your sketches that you did in the hospitals. And I have a question here, a comment that I'll read in just a second. You are so prolific. It's incredible. So you said that a lot of your sketches are in the Smithsonian, was it?
So all the stuff I did, so a great deal of the material from Afghanistan was accepted into the Smithsonian. Anything that involved Marines is with the National Museum of the Marine Corps. So I donated everything I've done, pretty much.
Wow. So Pat is asking how much time it would take for you or you would have had to work on these sketches.
So, I mean, some of these are a matter of minutes, and, some of them probably no more than 45 minutes. I mean, some of them, though, I think we went through some that were inside the cockpit of a C-130. So at that point, I had however long a 2-hour, 3-hour flight in the cockpit to, really enjoy the space. I draw like everything may change at any second anyway, but I also don't want to miss a detail. So I'm not showing you all the sketches where I just have an ear or an eyeball or someone's arm and I never got any further than that.
Right.
I'm only showing you the successful ones, but I have sketch pads that are filled with little bits of bodies where somebody moved, somebody shifted.
Yeah, I just have a comment from Oliver Holder, who is an amazing artist from Vienna, a wonderful artist. I'm a big fan of Oliver's, and we have an online workshop with Oliver Holder at Studio 56 called Design on the Fly. And he's a fan of yours, and he's in this call, and he says that he's a huge fan of Richard Johnson, and he wonders how you manage your time when making these intricate drawings. And do you know how much time you have in advance? I think you kind of just answered that.
Kind of. I mean, I've definitely gotten better of knowing when somebody's not likely to move for a bit, knowing when I have a figure in repose that they're going to come back to the same position again.
Yeah.
Especially important if you're drawing something like an airplane and there's someone on top of it, getting that, even the slightest details of getting the figure at the right scale early on is very important to me. Doing the whole helicopter and then deciding to draw the guy on top with the enormous head and the arms that are too long, that can be incredibly depressing. So I try and get those figures drawn early, so at least I know if I can get the rest done, it won't fail because I've drawn something too large. That's clearly out of place, that photograph. So in this particular case here, I knew we were going on this patrol, so I started drawing this scene before the soldier entered the cab to go on patrol. And I also know through being on enough patrols that they will stage, 25 minutes to 40 minutes before they actually roll out. So I had all the right-hand half of this drawing, admittedly on the wrong angle for my paper. I had all the right-hand half of this drawn before he got there. And then I had 40 minutes to put him in as he went into sit and wait mode before we rolled out. So
Right, right. And so when you're, embedded like this, do you generally kind of ask permission of the soldier? Do you mind if I draw you? I have a plan to draw you.
No, not really. I just at that point, and that's a tough one. I think that's a good question. Inside the military and outside of the military, we all struggle with that. When is it okay to draw people? When are you invading their privacy? Anyone in a public place is fair game for photography, and I've always accepted that as a newspaper photographer rule. As if you're in a public place, you can be photographed. I don't have to ask your permission.
Yeah.
And I've always extended that to when I'm drawing people as well. If you're in a public place, if you're on a subway, then I can draw you. You're fair game. I'm not stalking you. But within the military, I have more weight than that. I have a kind of civilian, in inverted commas, rank that allows me to pretty much, draw whoever I want. And they're, most of the time if somebody really doesn't want drawn, I won't draw them. In all other circumstances, I'm just drawing flat out all the time. And these guys, when you got guys who are in a guard tower, when they're here, they're doing an 8-hour shift and they're on a succession of 10 days of 8-hour shifts, they're more than happy to have someone who will come and, talk nonsense.
Or just talk to them, yeah.
This was from Iraq last year, and we went to the Iraqi kind of control center for, I think, Al-Assad base, and this fellow was quite the character, and I was there to do non-posed sketches, but he really wanted drawn. He was such a character. Had this incredible comb over and this flight suit that seemed like it was from World War II. And so I ended up drawing him, and then he put his name on it in Arabic, and I gave it to him.
Well, you can see that he has, he's very proud of himself.
Oh, it was so weird. So weird. I mean, I've had a number of those kind of, you'll get to the portrait stuff eventually, but.
Yeah. I'm going to click through a bit quickly, and I apologize for people. I know that some people are.
If you want anybody who wants to send me an email, I can keep this link active and just send you a link to this whole Google Drive. I'm probably not going to keep it up forever, but if that's something anyone wants, I'll gladly share this slideshow with your email address, and you can go through and take a look and ask further questions if that's helpful. This is a good one. Go back this one. I like this one because I feel this is just before I threw up, and I think you can see exactly how sweaty I am and how uncomfortable I am. I've been on this. This is a V-22, a Marine Corps Osprey, and I'd been on it for 3 hours and 10 minutes. And I knew it was going to be a 3 hour and 15-minute flight, but I just couldn't make the final 5 minutes. So I had Ziploc bags in about 4 different pockets. And so the drawing is which I'm glad I kept drawing, but yeah, I didn't make it. None of the Marines were very impressed with me.
Is it because it was shaking so much, like car sickness kind of?
Oh yeah. Yeah, this is a good, you can let this video play as well. It flies like a brick doesn't.
Oh my gosh. That's crazy. And there you captured.
Barely hold the pencil on the paper.
That's amazing that okay, so this looks a little less accurate than your other sketches, but you really got it anyway.
Well, certain details I know I could shorthand and go back at. So all the interior cockpit, I could then later go and sit in an interior cockpit and get it down. So what I was getting down mostly was the rifles behind the pilots and the pilot details, and I could go in and finish the interior of the cockpit from a nice static one on the ground.
That's crazy.
But in many cases, that's I do go back at things when I'm done. But for me, it's incredibly important to get as much, even badly live. It's just important to get as much live as possible from sitting and immersing yourself in it.
Mm-hmm. Cool. I'm going to just try to skip ahead because I want to show people this one is so incredible. My gosh, Richard, so detailed. It's such a huge undertaking.
This is probably my closest to channeling Paul. He doesn't, like me, he doesn't believe there are any straight lines in the world. Everything's a curve. And when you sit in one place to draw something really big, you can't draw it with straight lines, and especially things like this. So that was a fun one. This was at Cherry Point. This was at a game with another artist, a Marine Corps artist down there at that time.
Well, you must have blown him away. You must have freaked out.
I totally missed it.
He probably quit after that. He was so intimidated. How long would it take you to do a sketch like this?
I think that was a couple hours. Yeah, I sat there for a couple of hours through that one.
Wow, that's crazy. Okay, I really want to get, oh my gosh, I really want to get to your urban sketches so that people can see how great.
You can exit out and then just zip down. You don't have to go scroll through.
Am I getting close, you think, or?
I can't remember.
Okay, let's see what happens if I do that.
There's just.
So these are more the urban sketches, right? Or are we still in military things?
You've got urban sketches there. So these are my holiday snap sketches.
You went to this hotel on your holidays. Wow, your wife must have been really happy.
These are from Greece. It's possible that I'm attracted to the same kind of rundown material everywhere, but yeah. And these are graphite because sometimes I like to challenge myself.
Yeah. So more landscapey things. Like you are drawn to things that look like they've been recently blown up.
Maybe. I hadn't really thought about that.
No, there's a beautiful charm about, the relic,
Yeah, I mean, certainly at home in Scotland, I think I'm much more attracted to the old buildings than even other Scottish people are who live there all the time. I find myself constantly traipsing around looking for an opportunity to find a castle or a broch or anything that's run down.
Right.
A barn that's just.
How long ago, or what age were you when you left Scotland?
I guess I've been out for about 3 decades now, but I'm never out for long.
Okay.
But yeah, Greece was great as well. So much good stuff to draw.
Yes. So Pat says, amazing work. Pat is one of the members of Urban Sketchers Waterloo Region, and she does amazing work herself. And so she's a very nice compliment. Beautiful.
I don't know if you want to touch on the portrait stuff.
Yes. So that's before or after these?
Yeah, probably after. Let's go with after. Okay.
I don't want to go too quickly, but because people need time to absorb it, So are you still here using that blue indigo pencil?
No, that's ballpoint. This is locally around me. I like these old barns.
Yeah.
So that's Maryland. And yeah, old vehicles in Maryland. It's just people like to collect the old cars in their yards, and they're fantastic too.
Oh, I love that when my neighbor has a jalopy in his yard.
White House. This is I love this. I'm not sure if he's still there, but he was for 20 years. Is the guy who has the anti-nuclear demonstration right in front of the White House. It may be that he's been swept away recently,
Yeah. So, Richard, let's give. Here's a question I know people would want to know. Do you have any advice for capturing people quickly? So, in the background, I can see that that's a completely different thing from the portraits and so on. So, let's talk about the people in the background like that.
So you're looking for,
just people are trying to figure out, how do I get people in there? So I don't want to put the words in your mouth, but I'm assuming that it doesn't actually matter. You're just trying to show that there's people.
They're there for the scale of the fence, really, just to push the background and bring that foreground out. And that's a shorthand. I guess that's almost like an architectural shorthand for people. And I'm not sure I have a real skill at it. I will often draw someone and think, oh my God, I've given them an enormous head, or that's clearly not proportionate. So I don't think I'm the best at shorthanding people in a distance like this, especially not if there's a lot of them. But I am decent, if there's someone in a picture, I'm pretty good at getting them to scale.
I think you've done a fantastic job. And I think your trees also seem to be, in this sketch in particular, kind of a shorthand, because you're just quickly showing that the trees are there. And that looks also very architectural.
Yep.
So what is your advice that you would give people for drawing people?
I don't know. Let's choose one that you, here's me dabbling with watercolor. Let's choose one, and maybe I'll get more of a feel for exactly what you're after. Choose a drawing of a person. I think you'll need to exit out of here, otherwise you'll just be...
Well, I want to show people some of your landscapes and your watercolor.
So these are standing stones in Scotland, which I've become fascinated, because anything that's 6,000 years old is just amazing.
It is, yeah. And the fact that this arch is even still standing is amazing.
It's remarkable. Well, this is very near where I grew up, and this little arch kind of mesmerizes me. I've drawn it a few times, and why it's still standing, I have no idea. They have castles like this everywhere, right? They have them in parking lots that people have forgotten about, these old fortified homes. And
crazy.
Yeah. So as far as we're okay, so here's the people. If you go back one again, so I was on an embed with the US Army, where they were covering a hurricane that had swept through some islands off the coast of Puerto Rico. And then within the time it took me to get loaded up all my gear and go with the plan of embedding, I was flying into Puerto Rico, and Hurricane Maria hit Puerto Rico in the time, the day before I landed. So I landed right into this hurricane, and the army guys I was supposed to embed with abandoned me. And so I was just stuck in Puerto Rico for about 3 weeks. And so I spent time just wandering around drawing the damage in Puerto Rico with my trusty ballpoint at this point.
Yeah.
And these are just people queuing for things. So a scene like this is a good one, right? So what I do in this instant is pin the foreground figure and then pin the far background. So the foreground figure was the first thing that I drew, and I also pinned that line that comes out the left-hand side of his head there. And that allowed me to, with those two pieces of reference, his height and that far distance height, everybody else could move around until I thought they were static enough to draw, and could then be drawn in as they moved around, even as they faded away. Even as they got up and went somewhere else, I could choose someone else to draw in. This is people waiting for cash. So that's how I do it with a crowd scene like this, when everybody's shuffling slightly, is to get that foreground figure in.
I think this is really incredible, Richard, honestly, that you're just going straight in with pen and you're creating this image. And like, even if you look at the shoes, normally people would look at the straps and the way they're overlapping each other and everything else, but you've obviously just are focusing on the shapes of the skin that you can see through.
Mm-hmm. Showing the holes in the shoes rather than the shoes themselves.
That's incredible. I mean, I really admire it. Wow. These are great. So Richard, I want to show some of the sketches that you did of in the hospital. Are they before this or after this?
I'm not sure whether we, okay, so I'm not sure whether I actually put any of those in other than the video.
Okay.
So it may be that we just finish with the video, but before I feel like we should at least talk about, so the other thing that I spoke of, the Marine Corps art program. They're very interested in all of our field sketches, but they want those field sketches to become large pieces of historical art. So these are larger pieces that are done after the fact, often heavily photo-referenced, but built on the experience in the field. So the one before this, if you go back one, if you can, was the same flight that I threw up on. So this is my, so when I say this is a larger piece done after the fact, this was drawn within 24 hours of that flight, because I like to have that, I still feel like it's in my skin if I can get to a piece of art like this quickly. So I hope it still has that, not the same immediacy as actually drawing on the helicopter, but you can tell, you know, that I still have the Ziploc bags in my pocket, and this wasn't that long ago. So for me, I need to, when I'm going to do a further piece of art like this that's directly aimed at the museum, I need to do it within hours of it happening, within 24 hours, I would say. So these larger pieces are done within 24 hours, heavily photo referenced though, but definitely still emotionally attached to the moment, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Cool. And the same with the next one. So that gives you some idea of these are larger pieces, or this one on the tank on the left. We've gone by it, but.
This one?
Yeah, this one on the left on its own. No, go forward two, and
forward two.
Yeah, so this is a patrol where I went along after a police station had been ambushed. Now, walking behind the tank as they're expecting to be ambushed on their way to rescue is not a time I'm going to take out my pen and paper. But this scene was drawn within 24 hours afterwards. So this was made as soon as I survived the day when this image was fresh in my mind. And so these are, I mean, I consider, they're not urban sketches, they're not live, but I consider them my emotional attachment and the immediacy to be almost as good when it comes to drama and capturing the moment.
I think you've done an excellent job. These are incredible. I want to, I just want to show some of these portraits.
Oh, the wounded stuff or the portraits? Up to you.
These portraits. I just want to scroll through them so that people have a chance to see that these are really incredible.
So all these are live. All of my portraits are live, and one of the things I try and do is take an opportunity to really capture the people I'm with. So this is not urban sketching because they know they're being drawn, but for me, this is 20 years old now, and at the time I didn't really enjoy any of these that much. They're kind of a mechanical, I'm drawing what I see, but when I look back at them, you know, 15, 20 years later, I'm really attached to these drawings of personnel in the field. And you can tell I'm definitely developing more. Some of these are more recent. I have more skill and more time, or they had more time to sit for me. But I actually thoroughly enjoy these live sketches of people, of soldiers and servicemen and women in the field.
Yeah, they're very poignant. They're really beautiful. I mean, you're so talented. You're gifted, really you are. These are incredible.
I think you can really get an emotional feel for what they're going through from the drawings.
Yeah, definitely. So before we end, I just want to show the video that you have. I'm just going to scroll through these till we come to the end, but maybe you can tell us about the video that we're going to show in a minute. It's a short little 3-minute video.
It's possible that, you know, it's been up on the Washington Post site for a while.
The video?
Yes. So it's possible that some people have seen it. But about 5 years ago, on the anniversary of my son being in hospital, I wrote a piece about why I think drawing is important. And I showed those photographs, and it got quite a big response on the site. And I was then contacted by Children's National Hospital in DC to ask if I wanted to go in and spend some time drawing their heart babies. My son had a heart problem. It was a way in to something I would never have dared ask for. I don't think I would approach the ICU unit of pediatric cardiology and said, "Hey, can I come in and draw your people under stress?" I would never have done that. But because they came to be, it gave me this fantastic opportunity. So over a month, I followed 4 families. But this is a little video we built for the website, and I can send you the link to all the drawings. I haven't put any of them in here.
All right, shall we play it now?
You can go ahead and play it. Hopefully it plays nicely.
I think it has its own sound, right?
It does, and it'll have me talking on it in a Scottish accent.
Oh, okay. Do you do any other accents?
Whatever it takes to get the girl.
Okay, so you have been embedded with the military for quite a while.
Obviously, yeah.
Yeah.
I met Teddy Theodore Wiebke. He was the first child I spent any time with at the Children's National Medical Centre when I was there drawing. When I entered the room, it was difficult to even see Teddy. He was somewhere wrapped in this, what looked like some kind of Terminator movie set where he's completely encapsulated in wires and cables and tubes, and literally almost all I could see of him were his toes sticking out and this shock of really dark black hair that he had. Teddy had a heart condition, so when I met him for the first time, he was on the transplant list, and the doctors and nurses were doing everything they could to make him well enough that he could actually survive that operation, should they be fortunate enough that a heart should come along. Absolutely everybody knew Teddy. They'd all worked with him, they'd all been with Ida and Dan through everything that they'd been through with him as well. And I think they had formed an incredible bond with him. Everybody was pulling for him. Teddy's mum always tried to help with whatever was going on, always tried to be as involved as possible. They were, catheterizing Teddy, and he's just a little button, right? There's not much to him, so they were doing the best they possibly could, and they thought he had him all set up, and at some point they just finally managed to make it work, and he peed the catheter out and peed nicely across the entire room, which was good because up until that point they'd been worried about how well he'd been peeing and were trying to make sure he was losing fluids at the correct rate. So it was a golden shower which touched the wall behind my head, but it missed everybody, but it was good distance for a boy his size. There were 4 family members in there. I think Grandma was there. Both Ida and Dan were there, and I think Ida's sister was there as well. They knew, I think, what was happening, and they were very much in the process of spending their last small amount of time with Teddy. Drawing in that situation seemed like the most alien thing, and yet that's what I'd come there to do. I drew through the whole thing. I drew through the doctors coming in and explaining that Teddy wasn't going to make it. They'd done all they can do, but the next decision was up to them as to what they wanted to do next. I just, really wanted to capture this particular moment of love and angst all wrapped up together. I mean, I felt like an interloper, but I also felt like I'd done something for them that was important as well. I passed all the originals on to, his mum and dad. They were very grateful. So I hope that the drawings have given them something more to look back on, 10 years down the road, they can look back and remember.
Wow, that was very powerful.
So obviously that was a live drawing. They had me redraw, especially to make that video, which is how they managed to actually watch it being created. So it was a live drawing when I was in the room with them, and then we kind of retraced it after the fact.
Wow, that's very Very poignant, very moving, my gosh. And, you know, a lovely gift that you gave to those people.
Yeah, it was, you realize that this is a day job for some people, that this kind of angst and agony and this kind of production line of families in abject pain is, I'm always impressed by, having had a heart baby, the caring of that profession kind of blows me away.
It's crazy. It's so,
Yeah, I was very
so
fortunate.
beautiful.
I don't think I would have managed it. I don't think I could have ever asked for that assignment, but it kind of built off me writing about my son, and so it fit perfectly.
Mm-hmm. Well, Richard, I want to thank you so much for sharing all those gorgeous sketches with us. They're just really beautiful and really inspiring. And I think I speak for everyone on the call that you know, we really learned a lot and appreciate so much your time and your immense talent. Thank you.
Well, hey, you're very welcome. I will, you know, if you do want to collect email addresses of anybody who wants to look at the slideshow in a slightly more even pace, I will gladly share that slideshow with them, you know, for the next few weeks or so, if you think anybody interested, and take questions on any way I can help. And also anybody who wants to write to me for contacts for the various combat art programs, I'll give you what I have. It's not as organized as I perhaps accidentally made it seem, but there are opportunities to use you know, your skills as an urban sketcher to tell stories that don't necessarily fit into your day-to-day lives.
Yeah, that's incredible. I'm just going to let people know that, there we go. Please subscribe to the Studio 56 YouTube channel. I think the subscribe button is right down there. And also subscribe to our Studio 56 newsletter. And then you can find out about upcoming interviews. And speaking about upcoming interviews, really excited to tell you that I'm going to be chatting with Virginia Hine on July 30th. Virginia has worked as a concept and character designer for toys and entertainment, and as an art director, an illustrator, and a fine artist. And she's a teacher and an urban sketcher, and she's going to be talking about the dance of line and color. So many talented people. And then in August, really excited to tell you that I'll be chatting with Stephen Reddy, who is the author of several books, and he's an urban sketcher, and also Hazel Sohn, who is a very talented watercolorist and an artist, and that's coming up in August. I want to say thank you to our lovely friend, Richard Johnson. Richard, do you have any final words for people?
No, I'm very grateful that you took the time. Thanks for all coming and listening to me prattle on. If there's ever any advice or anything I can help you with, just reach out.
Okay, that's very kind, very generous. Thank you so much, Richard. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and stay safe and take care, and better days are on the horizon. All right, take care. Yeah, bye-bye.
Thanks, Brenda.